Hey, well, you missed two wonderful baptisms. Today, on behalf of the Holy Catholic Church, of all Christians around the world, we welcomed Robert John and Phoebe Juno into the family. We welcomed them into the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We welcome into the mission that is the kingdom of God. We welcome them into the fellowship that we try to provide at Jubilee, but that we provide around the world with our brothers and sisters, all children of God. And with their parents, we promise to do all that we can to help these children grow spiritually, to answer their questions, not run away from them, to inspire their queries and their wonder, to make sure that their spiritual life receives as much attention and care as their physical, mental, and emotional life will as they grow up. And they were babies. It was fabulous. We also heard the story of the feeding of the 5,000 in John's Gospel. And we talked about that a little bit and recognized that this is not a bit of historical journalism. In fact, John even tells us what Jesus is thinking and how Jesus is testing Philip with his questions, things that an eyewitness could not possibly know. We recognize that these are not the words of a journalist. This is somebody communicating faith. This is somebody telling you who Jesus is to him, to his community. And in that tells us about this God that we worship, this God with whom we live and create. So if you want to be part of this community, you should know these things about Jesus. You should know these things about God. And in the light of the feeding of the 5,000, you should know that God is miraculous, in that God will always burst your expectations. You cannot predict exactly what God is going to do, and nothing, in fact, is impossible with God. The idea of feeding 5,000 people with a few loaves and a couple of fish, with God, all things are possible. Whether the loaves multiplied and the fish became numerous, or whether people just passed them around realizing that their hunger was not as great as their love for their neighbor, something miraculous happened. And we should know that when we live in a community of faith, when we are drawn toward God, we should expect that miraculous things will happen. We should also know that Jesus, and therefore God, always work from an assumption of abundance and not scarcity. 5 loaves, a couple of fish, 5,000 people. Jesus doesn't panic. Jesus doesn't worry. In God's world, there is always enough. And if we could learn to work from an assumption of abundance instead of scarcity, perhaps we would discover that, in fact, there is enough. And we wouldn't have to buy into the false security that comes with hoarding resources or hoarding power, keeping things to ourselves to keep ourselves safe, a safety that is really only an illusion. But if we follow Jesus in this story and assume that there is enough so that we don't need to keep it to ourselves, we often discover that there is exactly that. Enough for everybody to be fed, with some left over. If we spend the time in this story, we discover a number of things, and another one we discover is that faith is participatory. If we were expecting to sit back in a comfy chair and let God do everything, we've come to the wrong faith. We are engaging the wrong God. This God revealed in Jesus, as John tells us in the Gospel, this is a God who expects our participation in miracles, in many things. Jesus asks Philip for his opinion. How will we feed these people? We are expected in our faith to give our opinions and our ideas, not to be sold on them as the one way, the only way, but we are meant to contribute. And we are meant to participate in this miraculous life. We are meant to feed others. We can't sit back and let God do it. If you really pay attention to the story, if you really engage in the true meaning of baptism, you discover, as we did today, that this life of faith, this God with whom we engage, is one who assumes abundance, never scarcity, is one who breaks expectations and does things that are miraculous, almost impossible, and one who expects our participation, not our audience. We are meant to be part of the faith. So that's what we shared today in baptism and in gospel, and we shared a lot of other things too, but I think that's enough for now. Hopefully we'll get to see you soon, and we won't just have to rely on these messages to share the word, but remember that you are engaged and loved by a God who believes in abundance, not scarcity, a God with whom all things are possible, and a God who expects you to participate. Hope we get to see you soon. God bless.